Okay, this parsha is called Parshat Nitzavim Vayelech. It's almost in the end of the Torah. Actually, in this week's parsha, we are going to have one of the commandments that's in the Torah, and it's one of the commandments that it's not really clear what you need to do and how to do it and so on. So that's what we're going to cover today. So let's see. This is source number 1. It says, Vayomer Hashem el Moshe, God said to Moshe, Hen karvu yamecha lamut, behold, your days are coming to an end. You're about to die. קרא את יהושע והתייצבו באוהל מועד. call Yoshua and meet me in the meeting tent. ועצבנו, and I will command him. וילך משה ויהושע, and Moshe ויהושע went. והתייצבו באוהל מועד, and they both stood in the meeting tent. וירא השם באוהל בעמוד ענן, Hashem appeared with a pillar of cloud. ויעמוד הענן על פתח האוהל, and the cloud stood on the opening of the tent. ויאמר השם אל משה, and God said to Moshe, הנך שוכב עם אבותיך, you're about to die, וכמה העם הזה, you should know, I know this nation, and you know them also, what's going to happen with the nation? This nation is going to stand up, וזנה אחרי אלוקי נחר. They're going to go after idols. הארץ אשר אתה ובא שם בקרבו. All the idols of the Canaanites, they're going to start serving them. ועזבני, they will leave me. והפר את בריתי, they're going to go against my covenant. אשר קראתי איתו, that we made with him. וחרה אפי בו, I'm going to get angry at them. ביום ההוא ועזבתים, I'm going to leave them. והסתרתי פניי מהם, and I'm going to hide my inners from them, my face from them. והיו לאכול, and they're going to be devoured. ומצאוהו רעות רבות וצרות, and they're going to find him many troubles. The Jewish nation are going to suffer. ואמר ביום ההוא, and he said in that day, הלא על כי אין אלוקי בקרבי, אין אלוקי בקרבי מצאוני הרעות האלה. And then they're going to recognize why is all this bad trouble is coming. All these bad troubles are coming is because there's no God with us. We left God. Now God is no longer with us, and that's why all the troubles are coming. And then, this is what God says. Listen very carefully. This is the whole point. This is the halacha that comes in this week's parsha. ואתה עיניו כתבו לכם את השירה הזאת. Write to you this song. האזינו. Yeah? This song. ולימדה את בני ישראל. And you should teach it to the Jewish people. שימה בפיהם. You should teach it so it will be in their mouth. They will know it very well. Why? למען תהיה לי השירה הזאת לעד בני ישראל. This song will be a witness between me and the Jewish people. So they're not going to say, I didn't warn them, I didn't tell them, we didn't know. Everybody's going to know. Everybody's going to know exactly why all these troubles are going to come. You know why? Look at the song. And everybody knows the song. Don't tell me somebody doesn't know the song. The commandment is you to teach them the song. Okay. So let's look at the Ralbag. What does the Ralbag says? What's the halacha here? So the Ralbag says, ועתה כתבו לכם את השירה הזאת, and now you should write this song, ולמדה את בני ישראל, שימה בפיהם, and you should teach the Jewish people, put it in their mouth. So the Ralbag says, כבר נתבאר אחר זה, we already explained, שהשירה היא דבר התורה בכללם עד תומם. The Ralbag says, it doesn't mean just azinu. When he says this song, it means this song, but it means the entire Torah. He says right in front of them the entire Torah, from Bereshit all the way to Israel. שנאמר, ויכתוב משה את השירה, and it says, and Moshe wrote this song, ויהי ככלות משה לכתוב את דברי התורה הזאת, and then it says, look, it's the entire Torah, he says. And it says, and when Moshe finished to write these words of Torah, al sefer ad tumam, on a book until the end. In other words, Moshe wrote the entire Torah. That's the commandment. וזה מעיד שהשירה הזאת רצה בו כל דברי התורה בכללם. And this means that this song when it says כתובת השירה הזאת, this song means the entire Torah. Not just the Azinu, but write the entire Torah. וגם השירה עמהם. And the Shira is part of the Torah, so it was also written with them. Page number 4. So the Rebbe says, let's understand. So what's the commandment? This is one of the 613 commandments. So what is the commandment? So let's see what the commandment is. ציווי מרשה רבנו לבני ישראל בפעם הראשונה. It says, this is when Moshe commanded the Jewish people in the first time. ועתה כתבו לכם את השירה. It says, and now you should write to you this song. When was this said? נאמר בשנת ה-40. The commandment was given on the 40th year. Just before Moshe died, just before they entered the land. בחודש אדר. It was in the month of Adar. סמוך לשבעה באדר. It was very close to the 7th of Adar. The 7th of Adar is the day when Moshe passed away. So it's a few days before that. This commandment by Moshe was given to the Jewish people. Why? How do we know this? כי הרי תחילת אמירת ספר דברים, because the beginning was ב-12 חודש ב-1 לחודש, was on the first day of the 11th month. That's when Sefer Dvarim started. ראש חודש שבט. It was the head of the month of Shvat. ועל פי זה, and according to this, how are you doing, Jeff? סיום ספר דברים כולל הציווי. So now the book of Devarim, we're on page 4, the middle of the page. So the end of ספר דברים כולל הציווי, ועתה כתבו לכם את השירה הזאת, and now you should write for you this song, נאמר בסמיכות לשבעה באדר, was said close to the 7th of Adar. And now comes the question, ולכאורה, כאשר בני ישראל שמרו ציווי זה ממשה רבנו, when the Jewish people heard this commandment to write a Sefer Torah for Moshe Rabbeinu, היו צריכים 60 ריבו בני ישראל גדולים. You know how many Sefer Torahs we should have had? This is the commandment to write a Sefer Torah. So you know what should have been done? They have 600,000 men, which were adult men. You should have, by that, 600,000 Torahs. This is a commandment for every Jew to write a Torah. He just commanded them. לכתוב ספר תורה. היינו שכל אחד ואחת מהם יכתוב ספר תורה לעצמו. That each and every man is going to write a Sefer Torah for himself. And the Rebbe is asking a question, ולא מצינו רמז לזה. He says, how come the Torah doesn't mention that the people, everyone went, and it was a big deal to write 600,000 Torahs? It's a big deal. It's never mentioned. Where's the mentioning of it? So let's see what's going on. Source number 3, on page number 4. וימת שם משה עבד השם בארץ מואב על פי השם. Moshe passed away. ויקבור אותו בגיא בארץ מואב מול בית פרעה, and he was buried by God. ולא ידע איש את קבורתו עד היום הזה. Nobody knows where is Moshe's burial place until today. ויבכו בני ישראל את משה בערבות מואב 30 יום. There was a mourning time for 30 days. ויתמו ימי בכי אבל משה. For 30 days ended the mourning phase. And what happens then? יהושע בן נון takes over. And יהושע בן נון מלא רוח חוכמה, כי שמח משה את ידיו עליו. Like I said, Yeshua becomes the leader. וישמעו אליו בני ישראל, ויעשו כאשר ציווה השם את משה. And the people listened to Yeshua, and they did exactly like Moshe said, and Yeshua took over. So far so good? Excellent. Page number 5. ויהי אחרי מות משה עבד השם. This was after the death of Moshe. ויאמר השם אל יהושע בן נון. And God talked to Yeshua ben Nun. משרת משה לאמור. Who was the servant of Moshe, he told him, Moshe עבדי מת. He says, look, Moshe my servant passed away. ואתה קום עבור את הירדן הזה. Now, your job is to pass the Jordan. אתה וכל העם הזה. Whose job? You, the entire nation. אל הארץ אשר אנוכי נותן להם לבני ישראל. To the country that I give to them, to the Jewish people. והעם עלו מן הירדן בעשור לחודש. And the people came up from the Jordan on the 10th of the month, the first month. ויחנו בגילגל. They camped in a place called Gilgal, Biktzeh Mizrach Yericho, which is in the east of the border of Yericho. So the Rebbe comes, I don't understand, the Rebbe says practically, what is going on over here with the writing of the Sefer Torah? So the Rebbe asks a question, Yetera mizo. The Rebbe says, moreover, Techef la'achar Shiva ba'Adar. So the 7th of Adar, look at the time. Look at how much time these people had. The 7th of Adar, Moshe passed away. Right? On the 7th of Adar. Haya evel al ptirat Moshe Rabbeinu me-30 shom. Moshe passed away and they mourned Moshe for 30 days. Okay? Va'achar kach. And immediately after, what did the Jewish people do? התחילו בני ישראל בהכנות לעבור את הירדן. Immediately they started making preparation to go over the Jordan. Right after Moshe passed away, this is what's happening. ועברו את הירדן בעשור לחודש הראשון, י' ניסן. And this is exactly 33 days later, they're passing the Jordan. This is 33 days later, Adar Nisan. ואחר כך התחילו, and immediately after, starting wars to conquer the land. And during that month, what did they all do? Mourned Moshe, and they had other things to do. ובפשטות, so the Rebbe asked a question on page number 5, in the bottom. לא ייתכן שבמשך זמן קצר כזה, it is impossible that we have 33 days. You want to tell me that in 33 days, הספיק כל אחד ואחד מישראל לכתוב ספר תורה לעצמו? Every Jew was able to write a Sefer Torah for himself? How long does it take to write a Sefer Torah? Anybody knows? With the preparation of the parchment and everything, it takes close to a year. And over here, what do you want to tell me? That 600,000 Torahs were written in a period of 33 days with preparations for war in the middle of the desert, with mourning of Moshe? How is that even possible? How can we even say that? כדי לקיים את המצווה עשה של כתבו לכם את השירה, this is the commandment, write to you. This is one of the 613 commandments that we have to write a Sefer Torah. ששמעו זה עתה ממשה רבנו, that they just now heard from Moshe Rabbeinu. Now they heard it, now they have to do it. After you hear something, the mitzvah is to do it. ומה גם, and the Rebbe continues, and it says, and still I'll make it even more difficult. שגם כתיבת ספר תורה דורשת כמה תנאים מיוחדים. Writing a Sefer Torah requires many conditions. First of all, סופר היודע לכתוב. You need somebody who knows how to write a Sefer Torah. There's many rules to it. Not everybody, it's not a book. Not everybody can write. There's many rules to it. הכנת הקלף, you need to prepare the parchment. הדיו, you need to prepare the ink. And so on. ובפשטות, and the Rebbe says, I don't understand. You cannot say, הרי זה דבר בלתי אפשרי כדי לסיים מלאכה אדירה זו במשך זמן קצר ביותר. You want to tell me that every Jew wrote the Sefer Torah, 600,000 Sefer Torahs in a span of a month? While preparing for war, while walking in the desert, while doing everything? In today's day and age, when you have all the time in the world, it takes a year. How can you tell me that? And he tells you a year to an expert. Over there, it's the first time they heard the commandment. They didn't know the rules, they didn't know anything, they have to learn everything now. How can you even say that? That's what's going on over here. What kind of a commandment is this? Are they doing it, and how they're doing it, and who's doing it, and what's going on? Page number 6. So let's try to understand the mitzvah of writing a Sefer Torah, what it's all about. On page number 6, ויבוא משה, and Moshe came, ויספר לעם את כל דברי השם. And he told the nation all the words of God. ואת כל המשפטים, and all the laws. ויען כל העם כל אחד, the entire nation said with one voice, ויאמרו כל הדברים אשר דיבר השם, נעשה all the things that God commanded. That's what we're going to do. ויכתוב משה את כל דברי השם, and Moshe wrote all the words of God. וישכם בבוקר, and he woke up in the morning, ויבן מזבח תחת ההר, and he built an altar underneath the mountain, ו12 מצבה ל12 שבטי ישראל, and he made 12 monuments for the 12 tribes of Israel. Rashi explains, Vayavo Moshe vayesaper la'am, when it says, and Moshe came and told to the nation, Bo bayom, he said in that day, Et kol divrei Hashem. This is just before Matan Torah. Moshe tells them all the laws of God. What's the laws of God? Mitzvat prisha ve'agbala, the commandment that you have to stay away from the mountain, don't come near it. Ve'et kol ha'mishpatim, and all the laws. What are all the laws? Sheva mitzvot shenitznavu bnei Noach. He told them the commandments that the sons of Noach were commanded. This is just before Matan Torah, before God gave us the 10 commandments. Ve'Shabbat, he told them the laws of Shabbat, again. Ve'kibud av ve'em, he told us the laws of honoring father and mother. U'para aduma, and he told us the laws for red heifer, because we needed to be pure for the giving of the Torah. Ve'didnim shenitnu lahem b'mara, and all the laws that were given beforehand in a place called Mara. Va'ichtov Moshe. So when Moshe is coming down from the mountain after 40 days in the mountains, besides the tablets that he broke, Moshe is writing down something. After the 40 days, what is written down? Let's see. Mi bereshit ve'ad matan Torah. And this is he writes all the way, this is just right before he goes up on Mount Sinai, Moshe writes the Torah. And you're going to tell me, Rabbi Bigelman, what do you mean he writes the Torah? The Torah was not given yet. He's going to get the Torah in 3 days from now. He did write the Torah. You know which part of the Torah? From Bereshit, from the first book of Torah, until Matan Torah, until the giving of the Torah. That part he wrote when? Before that. Bereshit he didn't live. He got it from God. Yeah. He got it from God. Vechatav mitzvot shenitzvu b'mara. And he wrote all the commandments that they were getting in Mara. Vayashkem baboker b'chamisha b'sivan. And he got up in the morning, chamisha b'sivan. So the Torah was written, the first book of Torah was already written, and a third of the second book was also written. When? Even before Moshe went up to the mountain. All the story of Exodus was already written. Up to that point of Matan Torah. The splitting of the Red Sea, everything was already written. And what happens? Let's see. This is the oral Torah, and now we're going to learn a rule about the oral Torah and a rule about the written Torah. So let's look at source number 6. Vayomer Hashem el Moshe, God said to Moshe, Ktov lecha et advarim haele, write to you these words, ki al pi advarim haele karati itcha brit vet Israel, because these words is the covenant between me and between the Jewish people. Page number 7. Darash Rabbi Yehuda bar Nachmani. Rabbi Yehuda bar Nachmani explains these words we just read, and he says, Meturgamano shel Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish katuv. He says, the interpreter of Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish said, he explains this verse we just read, and he says, Ktov lecha et advarim haele, write to you these words, vechatuv, and it's also written, ki al pi advarim haele, according to these words, hakeitzad, it says, how is it possible? Dvarim shebechtav, and he explains, this is the rule now. Dvarim shebechtav, I ata rashai leomram al peh. There was a rule when it comes to learning Torah. Things that are written, that God said to write, you're not allowed to say it verbally. When you say them, you have to say them from the book. You have to learn it straight from the book. In other words, the Chumash, the Torah, if you're learning Torah, you have to learn Torah from where? From a Torah, from a book. But things that are the oral Torah, it says those things you're not allowed to write. Those things you only say orally. Dvarim sheba'al peh I ata rasha lo bechtav. But written words may not be studied orally, and oral words may not be written. This is the rule we learned. So let's understand what's going on over here when it comes to the Sefer Torah. Veyesh lomar habiur beze, we have to explain it, we have to understand the explanation in this. Be'et matan Torah ne'emar, at the time of Matan Torah it says, ויכתוב משה את כל דברי השם ויקח ספר הברית, and Moshe wrote all the words of God, and he took the book of the covenant, ומפרש רש"י, and Rashi already explained to us that he already wrote מברשית ועד מתן תורה. He wrote, even before going up to the mountain, he wrote all the way from the beginning of the book of Bereshit until the part of מתן תורה. זאת אומרת, that means, שמזמן מתן תורה נעשה גדר החילוק בין תורה שבכתב ותורה שבעל פה. Then God gives him the differentiation between the written Torah and the oral Torah. He learned both from God. And God told him, the written Torah has to be written and the oral Torah may not be written. היינו שתורה שבכתב צריכה להיות בכתב דווקא. It means that the written Torah has to be written. מה שאין כן תורה שבעל פה. וכמו שכתוב, כתוב לך את הדברים האלה. Just like it says, write to you these words. ועל פי זה מובן, and according to this understood, שכל העניינים של התורה שבכתב שנעברו במשך כל הזמן של אחרי מתן תורה. So now comes the rule. Look how beautiful it is. So when was the Torah written after Matan Torah? All the part after Matan Torah was written throughout the 40 years in the desert. So from Bereshit until Matan Torah was written right before Moshe went up to the mountain. And then all the rest after Matan Torah was written by Moshe throughout the 40 years. That's what it was written throughout the 40 years. As it is happening, Moshe writes it down. נכתבו על יהודי ישראל. They were written by the Jewish people. Why? And how do I know they were written by the Jewish people? Because there's a law, you're not allowed to learn Torah unless what? Unless what? Unless it's written. The oral Torah, you're allowed to learn if it's not written. You're not allowed to write it. But the written Torah, you're not allowed to learn unless what? Unless it's written. And what did the Jewish people do in the desert? They learned Torah. How did they learn Torah? Must have been they writing it. So it looks like every Jew is doing what? Throughout the 40 years in the desert. Every Jew, according to this, is writing his own Sefer Torah. Right? Very good. כי לא היו יכולים ללמוד זאת בעל פה, because they were not allowed to learn it otherwise. מאחר שדברים שבכתב, אי אתה רשאי לומר בעל פה, because things that are written, you're not allowed to learn them orally.
So the commandment had already been completed prior to the people did it before Moshe commanded.
It looks like from it.
Oh, okay.
It looks like from it. They were writing it constantly. Or maybe they not. Maybe just Moshe. We'll see. But that's what it looks like. Let's look at page number 8. This is how Maimonides explained to us the transference of the Torah. It's an interesting thing. This is, by the way, the preface for the Mishnah, and it's very important rule to understand how it was done. So for Maimonides, he says, "Da ki kol mitzvah shenatan HaKadosh Baruch Hu leMoshe Rabbeinu." Know that every commandment that God gave to Moshe Rabbeinu, natna lo beferusha. So every commandment that we read in the Torah, 613 commandments that are written in the Torah, we see the commandment that it says, but we don't know the explanation. Where is the explanation for every commandment? That is the oral Torah. The oral Torah is the explanation to the written Torah. Many years later it was written, even though it was not allowed to be written. We had no choice because it was getting to be forgotten. And it was written, and that is the Mishnah and the Gemara that we have today. That is the explanation of the written Torah. But in that time of Moshe Rabbeinu, it was not allowed to be written. So it says, how was it learned in the desert? Let's learn how it was learned in the desert. היה אומר לו המצווה, God told Moshe the commandment, ואחר כך אומר לו פירושיה וענייניה. And then he used to tell him all the details of the commandment. For example, והיו לאות על ידיך. One of the commandments is tefillin. What does it say about tefillin? There should be a sign on your hand. ולא תותפות between your eyes. And for a sign between your eyes. Right? If you just learn the words in the Torah, it says have something on your hand and have something between your eyes. Anything. Does it tell us what? No. And does it say over here or does it say on your hand? It says on your hand. The verse says on your hand. We know it's not on your hand, it's over here. And between your eyes, do we put it between our eyes? No, we put it up here. How do we know it's black? How do we know it's 4 parshios? How do we know what everything? That's the oral Torah. That's the written Torah and the oral Torah. So this is, God gave him the mitzvah in the Torah. He wrote the mitzvah down. And then God told him the explanation of the mitzvah. And that was, God told him that you're not allowed to write. That you have to transfer father to son orally. וכל מה שהוא כולל ספר תורה ועניין לימודו לישראל היה כפי שאומר. So then, אומר לו המצווה נתונה לו פעם אחת, God would teach him this commandment one time, ולימדהו פירושה, and he explained to him all the details of this mitzvah. And then what happened, so, sorry, I missed a part over here. So it was first given from God to Moshe, that was in the first paragraph. In the second paragraph, that the one we read now, then Moshe is teaching it to whom? To Aaron. ויסתלק אהרון, ויחזור לימין משה. Then Aaron goes away, he's not the student anymore. Aaron goes and sits right next to Moshe, רבנו, ונכנסו אחריו אלעזר ואיתמר בניו. And the 2 sons of Aaron come into the tent. והיה משה אומר להם מה שאמר לאהרון. And Moshe told them again, gave the class again what he told Aaron. ויסתלקו, and they went to the side. וישב האחד לשמאל משה רבנו, one sat on the left of Moshe, והשני לימין אהרון, and the other one sat on the right of Aaron. ואחרי כן יבואו 70 זקנים, and then came the 70 elders, the Sanhedrin. וילמדם משה כמו שלימד לאהרון ולבניו. And Moshe taught them again, one more time. ואחרי כן יבואו ההמון, and then came the entire Jewish nation, וכל מבקש השם, and anybody who wanted to learn, וישם לפני המצווה עוד ישמור כל מפיו. So Moshe is teaching it over here, once to Aaron, once to Aaron's son, once more to the elders, and once more to the nation. In other words, how many times? 4 times. Moshe is teaching it. ואחרי כן כל העם הולכים ללמד איש לאחיו, and then the nations are going to go, teaching it to the kids, to the wives, to the people who are busy doing business, whatever it was. מה ששמעו מפי משה, whatever they learned from the house of Moshe, וכותבים המצווה היא במגילות. And they would write it in books. וישוטו השרים על כל ישראל ללמוד ולהגות עד שידעו בגרסה המצווה היא וירגילו לקרותה. And in other words, they wrote either a Sefer Torah, when it says Megillot, or they wrote a Chumash, like we have. ואחר כך לימדום פירושי המצווה היא הנתונה מאת השם, and then they taught them the oral time also. והפירוש ההוא היה כל עניינים, והיו כותבים המצווה ולומדים על פי הקבלה. So they would write down the commandment, which means the Torah part, and they will learn orally the explanation. This was the way it was done. Let's look on page number 9. זאת אומרת, that means, כאשר בני ישראל שמעו ממשה רבנו את הציווי, so now we know that when the Jewish people heard the commandment, ועתה כי כתבו לכם את השירה הזה, now write for you this song, which means this Torah. This is in the end of the 40 years. A few days before he passes away. He says, כבר היו כל העניינים של התורה שבכתב כתובים אצלם. The whole Torah, the whole commandments were already written by them. It wasn't something new. They didn't need to write it all anew. ולא נותר להם אלא להשלים ספר התורה. So all they had to do in those 33 days, they didn't have to write a new Sefer Torah beginning to end, which is impossible to do in 30 days like we mentioned before. It wasn't necessary. All they had to do is write from that point onwards. In other words, Parashat Ha'azinu. Very small parsha. Yeah, that's all they had to write. היה להם הפסוק, ועתה כתבו לכם את השירה עד סיום התורה. Though they have a very short thing, and that is very possible to do in 33 days. ועל פי זה מובן, and according to this it's understood, כיצד היה בגדר האפשרי שכל בני ישראל יוכלו להספיק לכתוב ספר תורה במשך זמן קצר כזה? So now we can understand how the entire Jewish people can write an entire Sefer Torah in 33 days. Because they didn't write the entire Sefer Torah, they just wrote Parashat Ha'azinu, which is very possible. כי מדובר רק אודות סיום ספר התורה, they only completed the Torah. מאחר שרוב הספר תורה היה כתוב כבר מקודם לכן, because the majority of the book, the vast majority of the book, was already written before. Now, we see something that's going to make it a little bit more complicated than we think it is. So let's look at page number 10. This is source number 9. It says, ויכתוב משה את התורה הזאת, Moshe wrote this Torah, ויתנה אל הכהנים בני לוי, and he gave it to the Kohanim, the sons of Levi, הנושאים את ארון ברית השם ואל כל ישראל. So he gave the Torah to the Levim and to the elders. And Rashi explained, שמעתי שאותו היום שנתן משה ספר התורה לבני לוי, Rashi says, I heard that on the day that Moshe gave the Sefer Torah to the sons of Levi, כמו שכתוב פרשת וילך, just like it's written in פרשת וילך, ויתנה אל הכהנים בני לוי, and he gave it to the Kohanim, the sons of Levi, באו כל ישראל לפני משה ואמרו לו, the entire Jewish people came to him, not only people from the tribe of Levi, the entire Jewish people came over to him, and they said to him, Moshe Rabbeinu, they says, Moshe, אף אנו עמדנו בסיני, we also stood on Mount Sinai, וקיבלנו את התורה וניתנה לנו, and we also received the Torah, and you gave it to us. ומה אתה משליט את בני שבטך עליה? Why are you only giving it to you? To whom? To your tribe? We also want it. ויאמרו לנו יום אחר, לא לכם ניתנה, לנו ניתנה. And we're afraid one day the tribe of Levi are going to say, you know what, it was only giving to us. It wasn't giving to you guys, to the other tribes. So it says when Moshe heard this statement from the Jewish people, from the other tribes, ושמח משה על הדבר. Moshe was very happy. ועל זאת אמר להם, and he told them, היום הזה נהייתם לעם. It says, oh, today you guys became a nation. Now I see that you actually want the Torah. The thing that doesn't make sense, we already explained that what? That every man has a Sefer Torah. This whole story, what's going on over here in this whole story? What are they talking about? Didn't we just said that everybody was writing the Sefer Torah, 600,000 men? How do you understand it with these statements over here? היום הזה הבנתי שאתם דבקים וחפצים במקום. It says, today I understand that you guys want to attach yourself to God. אמר רבי ינאי, so Rabbi Yanai says, כתב 13 תורות. It looks like Moshe Rabbeinu on that day wrote not only the Sefer Torah for the tribe of Levi, he wrote 13 Sefer Torahs. 12 ל-12 שבטים, 12 for the 12 tribes, ואחד הניח בארון, and one he put in the ark. שאם יבקש לזייף דבר, שיהיו מוצאים אותו שבארון. Okay, if there's going to be a mistake, you can check it with the one that's in the ark. Okay? So according to this now, we get, this is getting very not understood, this whole thing over here. Page 11. על פי זה מובנת תמיהה נוספת. So according to this, we're going to understand something else. ידוע הקושייה, there is a question. כיצד היה משה רבנו יכול לכתוב י"ג ספרי תורה ביום אחד? How did Moshe write 13 books of Torah in one day?
Copy machine.
Oh, so you're saying copy machine, very good. Very good actually. ואחד הבירורים הוא, בזה הוא, and one of the explanation, כתיבת הי"ג ספרי תורה היה לה השבעת הקולמוס. So one thing, it says Moses used Kabbalah. If you ever seen the Golem of Prague, you ever heard the story about the Golem from Prague, that the Maharal from Prague made a man, and that he made a man, and that man used to do stuff for him. So it says that Moshe took a kulmus, took a pen, the pen that writes Sefer Torah, and he told him, write. He gave it like a spell. He put a spell on it, and he told them, you should write Sefer Torahs. And he wrote by himself, because it is impossible for a man to write 13 Sefer Torahs in one day. Right? So that's why, like you said, copy machine. What else can you do? So the Rebbe says, nice saying, but it doesn't work. Why doesn't it work? Vehinu, the reason it doesn't work, I tell you why. Because there's laws for Sefer Torah. First of all, who needs to write a Sefer Torah? A Jew. And how is it needed to, what does the Jew need to do? He needs to go to the mikveh. And there's many rules beforehand. And he has to write every letter a certain wife. And if somebody else writes a Sefer Torah, it's not good. Try to make a copy of Sefer Torah. Is it kosher? It's not kosher. Cannot be. So all the things that it says, how is Moshe writing 13 Sefer Torahs in one day? It is for sure impossible. And besides that, there's a rule when it comes to Torah. What's the rule? All the commandments are not allowed to be through a miracle. All the commandments have to go through nature. You're not allowed to do a commandment through a miracle. For example, in Hanukkah, if you have miracle oil, you're not allowed to light the menorah with miracle oil. If oil comes up from the heavens, you're not going to be able to put it in the menorah. You need to put olive oil in the menorah, not miracle oil. And many other rules. Yeah? For Shabbat, if a glass of wine comes from the heavens, you can make Kiddush. The wine has to come from grapes, and so on and so forth. It has to be natural. All the Jewish commandments have to be in natural terms. ולא באופן של מעשה ניסים. ולכן לא מסתבר לומר, and therefore it is impossible to say, like Jeff said, that it was a copy machine, it was a spell. שכתיבת י"ג ספרי התורה הייתה באופן של השבעת הקולמוס מעשה ניסים, that it was a miracle. And we're going to tell a story over here that we're going to see how it is. There was one time that the Alter Rebbe was taken from one prison to another prison, to interrogation. From one prison to another prison. And he was taken on a boat across the river. And when he was taken on a boat across the river, he asked... Now, remember, the Alter Rebbe was in jail because he was too religious, let's put it this way, right? So he asked the person who's rowing the boat to stop the boat in the middle of the river because it was a moon that the Alter Rebbe wanted to do, Kiddush Levana. He wanted to make the blessing over the moon on it. And the rule says that when you make the blessing over the moon, you have to be standing, you cannot be moving. So he asked the person who rowed the boat, can you please stop? I want to make a blessing on the moon. So the guy was laughing at him. He said, you want to I'm taking you to jail and you're giving me commandment to stop the boat? What are you laughing about? So the Alter Rebbe stopped the boat. The guy was rowing, and miraculously the boat stopped. The Alter Rebbe didn't make a blessing though. He didn't make a blessing. He told to the guy, he didn't tell anything. Then he let the boat go again, and the boat started moving again. The guy was surprised, it's moving again. And then the Alter Rebbe asked him again, can you stop the boat? And the guy understood that the Alter Rebbe can make it stand anyway. So he stopped the boat, and then the Alter Rebbe made the blessing. Why? Because it has to come through natural means. It cannot be through a part. By the way, just an interesting story. The person who stopped the boat told the Alter Rebbe, he understood that the Alter Rebbe was a special man, since he was able to stop the boat. He says, I will stop the boat for you, no problem, I just want you to bless me. So the Alter Rebbe says, no, what kind of blessing do you want? He says, long life. So the Alter Rebbe says, I agree to bless you. He says, no, I want it in writing. Yeah? So the Alter Rebbe actually wrote the blessing on the paper, and there's actually the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, like 200 years later, found the family that they have the note from the Alter Rebbe to that guy with the blessing. Interesting story. Yeah? But again, we see that it cannot be through a miracle. It has to be through natural means. Page 12. But look, according to what we said before, the way we explained it before, מובן הדבר בפשטות. משה רבנו לא היה צריך לכתוב את כל י"ג ספרי התורה בשבעה באדר. It says, Moshe Rabbeinu didn't need to write all the 13 books on one day. It's not necessary. Because the books are continuously getting written when? Continuously, as they move in the desert. כי כתיבת רוב הספרים נעשתה במשך זמן שלפני זה, ולא נותר לו לסיים את ספרי התורה מהפסוק. In other words, that also understood now how Moshe Rabbeinu in one day is writing 13 Sefer Torahs. He's not writing 13 Sefer Torahs, he's working on it already from before, throughout the 40 years. It's just the end part, he's writing 13 times on the last day. Okay. Now, the question is, why is Moses doing it? Why didn't he give it to another person to do it? So page number 12, in the middle of the page, מובן ופשוט שבשעה שמשה רבנו עסק בכתיבת ספרי התורה, so we understand that at the time that Moshe Rabbeinu was busy writing the Sefer Torahs, לא הייתה באפשרותו לעסוק בדברים אחרים. It was just in the last day. He had to do only that. שהרי כתיבת ספר תורה ופרט כתיבת שמות הקדושים צריכה להיות מתוך כוונה, because it has to have certain meanings when you write the Sefer Torahs. ועל אחת כמה וכמה כאשר מדובר באופן כתיבה של משה רבנו. And of course, Moshe Rabbeinu, when he knows all the secrets of the Torah, how he writes it. ובפרט ספרי תורה שנועדו להורות את דרכם של בני ישראל לסוף כל הדורות. And this is the special Sefer Torahs that was given to each and every tribe. ואף על פי כן, nevertheless, הניח משה רבנו את כל שאר ענייניו. This is the last day on his earth, and Moshe Rabbeinu leaves everything, כדי לכתוב בעמוד עצמו, in order to write it himself. He could have given it to Yoshua. He could have given it to Aaron. He could have given it to other people. But no. וכל זה מפני גודל מעלתו באהבת ישראל. But he loved the Jews to such a degree, he couldn't do it, he couldn't give it to somebody else. He says, no, it is me, I have to do it for the Jewish people. So now we know, understand why Moshe didn't pass it on.
If you want to do something right, you do it yourself. That's probably where it came from.
Yeah? It's not that they're not going to do it the right way. But it's one of the things that if you want your son, if you're a mother and you want your son to be warm and you want to make the sweater, you don't want to buy it from China. Yeah, it's personal. You want it for himself. Exactly. But now we come to the most difficult question. And what is it? Page 13. והנה בעניין זה ישנה תמיהה גדולה ביותר. Now we're going to have the question. מובא ברמב"ם, the Rambam has a law. And listen to the law, Jeff. מצוות עשה, from here we learn, it's a positive commandment, על כל איש ואיש מישראל לכתוב ספר תורה לעצמו. That every Jew has to write a Sefer Torah for himself. Jeff, did you write a Sefer Torah?
No, but I wrote a letter once.
But did you write a Sefer Torah?
No.
Ben, did you write a Sefer Torah? I can tell you I didn't write a Sefer Torah. So why does the Rambam say it's a mitzvah for every Jew to write a Sefer Torah? שנאמר, because it says, this is what we learned from this week's parsha. This is the law. ועתה כתבו לכם את השירה, and now you should write this song. והדרך זה בשולחן ערוך, and this is not only in the Rambam. The Shulchan Aruch says, מצוות עשה על כל איש מישראל לכתוב לו ספר תורה. It's a positive commandment for every Jew to write a Sefer Torah. ואף על פי כן, and the Rebbe says, you know what, there's something strange, Jeff. The Rebbe knows you. He knows you didn't write the Sefer Torah. And he says, not only you didn't write the Sefer Torah, Jeff, לא מצינו שכל אחד ואחד מישראל יקיים את המצוות עשה של כתיבת ספר תורה. He said, I've never heard of such a thing. I've never heard of people writing Sefer Torahs. The Rebbe says, I never heard of people running around and making sure that they write, or at least they make somebody else write a Sefer Torah for them. It says, nobody ever heard of such a thing. There's no such commandment. It says there's a commandment and nobody's doing it. The Rebbe didn't do it either. So he says, what's going on over here? Nobody does it. What kind of a mitzvah is it that nobody does? Okay, let's continue. And then the Rebbe continues. והמדובר גם אודות גדולי ישראל. He says, the Rebbe says, I'm not only talking about me. The greatest sages amongst the Jewish people didn't write a Sefer Torahs. You never heard of such a thing. שדקדקו בקיום המצוות בהידור, and they did every other mitzvah very specifically. When it comes to Sefer Torah, why aren't they doing it? It's halacha. It says. ואף על פי כן, it says, nevertheless, לא מצינו שידקו לכתוב ספר תורה. We didn't find that they are going to write a Sefer Torah, or even if you don't want to write the Sefer Torah, at least write one letter. או להגיע אות אחת בספר תורה. Or at least write one letter in a Sefer Torah. Nothing. It says, what's going on over here? There's a commandment from the Torah, and we see the sages are not doing it. Nobody's doing it. Maybe the Sefer is doing it, That's his job. But besides the Sefer, nobody does it. And it says, and not only this, ואני יודע זאת בעצמי, the Rebbe says, I know it in myself. אדוני אבי מורי ורבי, היה מהדר מצוות. It says, my father was crazy about commandments. He used to make sure to do every commandment, the Rebbe says on his father, like crazy. That was his ultimate goal, to do every commandment. ואף על פי כן לא שמעתי ממנו מעולם, and nevertheless, I never heard from him ever, לא רק בסמיכות לגיל בר מצווה, אלא גם כמה כאשר he says, not only when I was close to בר מצווה, even afterwards, שאשתדל לקיים את המצוות עשה, שכתיבת ספר תורה. He never told me, hey, you should write a Sefer Torah. By the way, the Rebbe never wrote, I don't know what was the idea behind it, but he never even wrote a line in a Sefer Torah. Sometimes when in the end of a Sefer Torah, you hold the thing with the zeh and you get to line. The Rebbe, one time the Sefer with the Rebbe gave the Rebbe the pen to write a line, and the Rebbe gave him the pen back. He didn't even want to do the line. There's an Indian in it, not even the line. He didn't even do the line. He gave it back. I said, I'm not doing it. Yeah? ויש לומר רבי בזה. So, but it's a commandment from the Torah. What's going on over here? כשם שישנו ספר תורה של יחיד, it says just like there's a ספר Torah of an individual, ישנו גם ספר תורה של רבים. There's also a concept that's called a ספר Torah that belongs to the community. כמובן מלשון המשנה והגמרא פוסקים בכמה מקומות, כפי שרואים במוחש, like we learned in many places. Page 14. וכמסופר במדרש רז"ל, just like it says in the midrash, שמשה רבנו כתב י"ג ספרי תורה. And now we're going to understand. When Moshe wrote the 13 books of the Torah to the 13 tribes, he wrote 12 י"ב ספרי תורה עבור י"ב השבטים וספר תורה נוסף המונח בעזרה. He put 12, he gave to one to each tribe and one he put in the base of מקדש. זאת אומרת, that means שמשה רבנו כתב ספר תורה אחת עבור כל השבט כולו. That means that Moshe wrote a book for the entire tribe. ואם כן, if this is so, the entire tribe owns the ספר תורה. That's their ספר תורה. והנה כאשר מדובר אודות ספר תורה של רבים, and when we are talking about a book of the Torah that belongs to the community, הרי בית דין הוא בעל הבית ספר תורה הזה. The court, the community, is the owner of the ספר תורה. ולכן בכוחו של בית דין להתנות שבכתיבת ספר התורה תהיה עבור כל אחד ואחד מישראל. And the community says that every Jew that comes up and says a bracha on this Sefer Torah, who does the Sefer Torah belong to at that moment? At that moment it belongs to that Jew. Because it's a communal thing. If you're a Jew and you come to shul and you say a bracha, the people who bought the Sefer Torah have in mind that it belongs to whom? To anybody, whoever is going to come in. It belongs to him just as much as it belongs to everybody else. That's what they have in mind when you have a communal Sefer Torah. That's the idea behind it. ועל פי זה מובן שכל אחד ואחד מישראל, and this is why you can make a blessing on the Sefer Torah like it's yours. When we go up to the Sefer Torah, we make a blessing like it's yours. יוצא ידי חובת קיום מצוות כתיבת ספר תורה, and you did the commandment of writing a Sefer Torah when you belong to a congregation that has a Sefer Torah. Or even if you don't belong to a congregation that has a Sefer Torah, when you come to any shul with a Sefer Torah, that Sefer Torah is you. Because the people who wrote the Sefer Torah wrote with you in mind. That anybody who's going to come, it also belongs to him. Yes.
So, Moshe did it for us.
That's right.
He completed the mitzvah for us.
That's right. He wrote the Sefer Torah on that condition, that it's a communal Sefer Torah for the entire tribe.
That's very kind.
על ידי כתיבת ספר התורה של הרבים, כי לב בית דין מתנה עליהם. Because it is the court, the people who write the Sefer Torah, the court, or Moshe Rabbeinu, in our example, he makes the condition that this Sefer Torah belongs to the entire Jewish people. Where do we have a similar example for this? So today there's not such a big problem with etrogim, with etrogs. Everybody can get an etrog. If you can get an expensive one, you can get a cheaper one. It's not such a big deal. But in the old times, it was a big deal, especially in places like Russia, because etrogim don't grow in Russia. There was wars constantly. How are you going to get an etrog from Italy or from Spain into Russia? It's a long time. Yeah, it's not going to get there in 1 day. So, and it was very, very expensive. So what did people do? We're going to see what the Jews used to do. והמצווה של נטילת לולב צריכה להיות, it says the commandment of taking the lulav needs to be, באופן של ולקחת לכם ביום הראשון, that in a manner that we should take in the first day, היינו שביום הראשון ישנו חיוב מיוחד שהדלת מניה שלו. There's an obligation on the first day, at least, on the first day, that the etrog has to be your personal property. It cannot be belonging to somebody else. In other words, you cannot loan an etrog from your friend. On the first day, it has to be yours according to Torah. והנה ידוע, and he says, but behold, look, שבכמה קהילות בישראל היו נוהגים לברך על דלת מינים של הקהל. That's not true. It says, look, many communities, the entire community used to share an etrog. They used to share the 4 kinds. Why? כי מפני צר ומצוא כגלות לא היה באפשרות כל אחד ואחד מאנשי הקהילה לקנות דלת מינים משלו, because it was too expensive for each individual to buy in old time Russia, because everybody was poor. ולכן היו כל הקהל מברכים על דלת מינים של הקהל. So everybody used to bless on one etrog and one lulav. ומאחר, and also over there they used the same condition. מאחר שישנו התנאי שלכם, since the people who bought this etrog and lulav, they bought it on under this condition that anybody who comes to town, any Jew comes to town who doesn't have a lulav and etrog is included in it, it belongs to him. הנה כאשר כל אחד ואחד מאנשי הקהילה היה לוקח דלת מינים כדי לברך עליהם, which each individual used to take these 4 kinds, הרי באותו שעה מקנה לו הקהל. At that moment, the congregation is giving it to him. It says, you know what? Right now it's yours. That's what it says. את הדלת מינים שהיו נחשבים לרשוע פרטי, it says, now we're giving it to you as a present. But we're giving you in a present on the condition that you are going to give it back to the next guy as a present also. ואחר כך מקנה הקהל את דלת מן לחברו שבא לברך עליה וכן הלאה. And that's why it was passed from one to another. זאת אומרת, this means, just like we said before, like the Sefer Torah, the לב בית דין מתנה עליהם, that the court makes a condition that it belongs to the entire congregation, שכאשר כל אחד ואחד נוטל את הדלת מינים כדי לברך עליהם, הרי נחשב לרשוע פרטי לכם. It belongs, it becomes his own individual etrog. Just like the Torah becomes the individual Torah for each and every one of us. למרות שברגע שלפני זה וברגע שלאחרי זה נחשבים דלת מינים לרשוע פרטי של כל אחד, ועל דרך זה מובן בנוגע לענייננו שלב בית מנדים עליהם שכאשר כל אחד ואחד עולה לתורה, so each and every one of us when he goes up to the Torah, כדי לברך וללמוד בספר התורה של הרבים, in order to bless or to learn in a ספר Torah that belongs to the community, יחשב ספר התורה לרכושו הפרטי. That ספר Torah becomes your ספר Torah. And by the way, you can see it even, by the way, you know how you can see it? If I'll tell you, take a Sefer Torah from over there, right? Write a Sefer Torah, a Chumash. In your head, who does the Sefer Torah belong to? No, this Chumash. Does it belong to somebody in Afghanistan? To a shul in Afghanistan? To a Jew in Afghanistan? Does it belong to him? Only this synagogue. But if a Jew in Afghanistan comes over here for 1 week and he goes up to, you know what he feels? This Sefer Torah, you know, he doesn't have the same feeling with this Sefer Torah as he has with that book. That book he knows only belongs to this shul. But that Torah, you know the feeling when he goes up and he makes a blessing. You know what the feeling he has? That Torah belongs to me just as much as it belongs to anybody else over here. You can even see it in the feeling of the person. You go to any shul in the world You don't feel, I can take any book over here, it's mine. But the Sefer Torah, the use of the Sefer Torah, it's mine just like anybody else in the world. This is exactly what's going on over here. Okay, one... בהמשך לאמור לעיל הרי זה שעת הכושר להזכיר עוד פעם אודות כללות העניין של בני ישראל על ידי כתיבת ספר תורה כללים. And also we have an idea. There's an idea that the Rebbe emphasized on many occasions to write Sefer Torahs just like Moshe Rabbeinu did. What does it mean? Not that it belongs to a specific congregant, a specific congregation. You write the Sefer Torah that it belongs to the entire Jewish people. There's such a concept. And not only that, היינו שכל אחד ואחד מבני ישראל ירכוש אות באחד מספרי התורה הכלליים. And to make sure that every Jew will buy at least a letter in the Sefer Torah. Do you have a letter in the Sefer Torah? Did you ever buy one? You need to buy one. It costs $18. It doesn't cost more than that. קנית חלק? עזרת לכתוב, so you helped writing, okay? But there's a concept to buy at least a letter. You can buy a whole paragraph, you can buy a whole thing, but a letter costs $18. Okay? $5 I think you can even buy, for whatever. So everybody is supposed to buy at least a part of the Sefer Torah, but not in a Sefer Torah that belongs to the entire congregation. וכמובן שכאשר יהודי רוכש אות אחת בספר תורה, and as for sure, when a Jew buys one letter in Sefer Torah, יש לו שייכות לכל הספר תורה כולה. He's not only buying that one particular letter, he's buying the entire Sefer Torah. And not only is he buying it for himself, he's buying it for the entire Jewish people. בדוגמת המגיע אות אחת בספר תורה. Okay? Just like a person, it says that if a person fixes it, if a Sefer Torah is no good, times is a mistake, and one fixes one letter in the Sefer Torah, the whole Sefer Torah, he fixed it. In other words, he made the entire Sefer Torah. So that letter that you bought is the entire Sefer Torah. It is considered to be like you actually write a Sefer Torah. So actually, today there's no commandment to write a Sefer Torah, the whole Sefer Torah. There is a commandment to participate in one of the Sefer Torahs that are available all over the world. And also there's another commandment that is similar to it, to have many Jewish books at home. As many Jewish books at home as possible.
Why did the Rebbe deny the opportunity to...
That's a Rebbe thing. I have no idea why that. Yeah, we do it all the time. Everybody does. I don't know why the Rebbe refused to do it. He had some probably, maybe because his father didn't do it, and he didn't want to be different than his father. Maybe he never heard from the father to do it, therefore he didn't want to do it. I don't know why. But obviously he did buy a Sefer Torah.
Hey, Rabbi, when we talk about Moshe receiving the Torah at Mount Sinai, what are we really talking about here? Because is it just the Ten Commandments? Because you're just telling me that
Okay.
finished writing it at the beginning of his life.
So let's
Before he received it.
So let
What did he get?
so very good question. So let's understand. Just before going up to the mountain, Moshe wrote the entire Torah from Bereshit until Matan Torah. When he went up to the mountain, he received the Ten Commandments, and he received all the things up to there. Yeah. And he received also the rest, for example, the Mishpatim, all the laws after it, with the explanations. With all the explanations. When he came down...
But that was orally, you said, right?
That was... He didn't write it down yet.
Right.
He didn't write it down yet. He received it on the Torah.
Not in writing.
That's when he came down, he started writing it. So at the moment that's right. When he came down from the mountain, he wrote all the way, all Parshat Mishpatim, right afterwards, all the laws, pretty much all the laws. And then when things were happening in the desert, he continued to write until the end of the 40 years.
When saying that it was received, it doesn't necessarily mean it was physically received. It was
most of the laws he received, he got an explanation in the Torah itself on Mount Sinai, not a book.
Yeah.
It wasn't a book yet.
It was received in some magical
Learning.
way.
Not magical, learning. Just like you teach somebody else. Moshe was just intelligent, he was able to learn very quickly. Think about that. Also, you have to remember one more thing. At that moment, Moses didn't have a so-called physical body. He was an angel. He didn't eat, he didn't drink. So he didn't have the constraints of time and space that we have. So 40 days up the mountain can be like 400 years up there.
So he learned it. When we say he received it, it means he learned it.
That's right.
Okay.
God taught it to him the same way as the Rambam tells you, he taught Aaron the next time.